Thank you very much to Jens LT for being one of my newest patrons and to help keep the channel going. Thank you very much to all of my patrons for helping me and supporting what I do. If you'd like to support, you can do so over at patreon.com/TJOmega. For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock stuff and help this channel do as much as it possibly can. So now we're going to do just a little bit more today. And by a little bit more, I mean we're upscaling. We're done with the deluxes. Time to move on to the Voyagers. And we're going to start with another one that raised a little bit of controversy when it was revealed. We're looking at Earthrise Starscream. And honestly, like, when I brought the Earthrise toys home, I was like, this is the one I'm kind of the most excited about. Which is weird because technically, I've played with this toy before. We're going to get into that once we get to the transformation. For now, we're going to look at it for what it is. Starscream is back as the classic F-15 fighter mode, and he's looking exceptionally nice. He's got the right off-white paint job, or that light gray, whichever one you feel it is. He's got the blue for his tail fins, a little bit of red there for his intakes, translucent orange for the cockpit. Aside from a little bit of blue missing from his nose cone, colors are spot on this guy, right down to his classic striping going all the way up the wing, and the Decepticon symbols that are upside down in robot mode, but hey, that's the way they were. So, looking on the underside, you can see like there's never any space to hide the jet. You hide the robot mode parts amongst the jet, but it doesn't do a terrible job at it. You know, it does keep somewhat of a slim profile. I've seen far worse, let's put it that way. Now, the big thing to this toy, and yeah, we're going to see a lot more of it when we get to transformation, is, yes, it uses the same basic engineering and design style as classics Starscream, so you do see a lot of that toy in this one, because basically it's an upscale, but it is not like just a full-on upscale. It's the same toy from 2006. No, they reworked it from the ground up to modern design standards, and everything is completely new on this figure. So, you know, we're going to look at it as if it was new, and then we're going to really talk about it once we get to the transformation. But for, yeah, the most part, it is what you expect it to be out of a Starscream. You get a lot of little panel details going. All the sculpting is very nice on him. Little tips on the wings. You got the striping going up the tail again. Thrusters in the back. They are not the round ones, but I kind of like how it handles the feet, because these are the feet folded up. You know, it does allow the feet to be a little bit larger and not to have some kind of little unstable thing like the original one had. So that works in its favor, I feel. And then, of course, the classic null rays hanging off the bottom of the wing. Now, we do have this little weird thing, which does look like a landing gear that's folded up. But in actuality, that is the hinge that connects the two halves of the nose cone, and that is the head of the robot. Now, if you remember how classic Starscream worked, that's actually an improvement over what they did there, which is they either left the head unpainted on the sides, so the nose cone looked correct all the way through, and then Starscream's head looked weird, or they painted all Starscream's head and left that little black. This took the latter approach, but you know what? That's fine. You know, I think the vehicle mode can sacrifice a little bit. Then, just for a little bit more play value, if you want, you do have the 5mm port on the top for your Battle Masters, for your additional weapons, like if you got the Astro Train with that has those, and 2 more ports here on the sides, if you can use them, because the null rays are in the way. So you do have to kind of swap things around a bit. But you do have a lot of ports, you know, just for that matter. You know, you also have the ports that these are in. So that's 7 ports all the way around if you really, really want them. And then, I was kind of hoping that one. I just noticed that one was almost the right size, but it's just not quite. All right, so let's get this guy transformed, and we can discuss a few things about him. So I'm going to start by folding up the wings, and I got to be a little bit careful because they are on some pretty shallow mushroom pegs, and they can come off a little bit easily if I'm not a little bit careful. Not too big of a deal. So you've seen this toy before. It's the classic Starscream transformation, so we're not going to really discuss what's going on the screen. You can use your eyes. But we are going to talk about the little bit of controversy that comes with this, in that he is just reusing an old transformation scheme. Now, I'm going to point out a few things. One, he's not the first Starscream to do it. Energon Starscream straight up ripped off his transformation from a previous jet transformer from G2/Machine Wars. And you know what? That turned out pretty good. That was actually a really nice Starscream toy. And, we kind of were weird about it then, but for the most part, we eventually came to accept it, and there really wasn't anything wrong with it. And then I'm going to also point out that we kind of do this all the time with Transformers. At some point, a toy comes along, and we just go, that's the standard for how that toy should transform. We do that with Optimus Prime. Most primes still use the G1 transformation scheme. They just, modernize it and actually make it work. Now, to be fair, this one doesn't completely rip off classic Starscream. There is a bunch of changes. Like I'm trying to get to one now. If the panel wasn't stuck and breaking the flow of what I'm trying to talk about. Come on. There we go. So it does do some new things to remove some sliding joints and to compact things a little bit better. So it is a slightly different transformation experience. That said, the classic Starscream transformation's a really good one, and I really don't have any issue with reusing it. Mostly because the transformation's 14 years old at this point. I think it's about time, like, after all the Starscream toys we've gotten, it's about time you get to reuse a really good transformation scheme. Don't you think? I think people are being just a little bit too hard on this. So, and besides, when classic Starscream came out, you know what everyone wanted? They wanted it as a Voyager, because it was a good toy, and we just wanted Starscream to be a little bit bigger, because we feel like he's supposed to be one of the larger characters. So, yeah. Took us 14 years, but we finally got it. So you know what? I'm perfectly happy with him. So Starscream in his robot mode, nicely proportioned, and you know what? I have owned 8 iterations of the classic Starscream, and I still really like the transformation. So I think that says something to the quality of it. He would look a lot better if I would actually put his null rays back on, wouldn't he? Okay, there we go. Okay, that one fell. That's embarrassing. Let me just go down here. I don't know why I switched to the ASMR voice, but here we are. Kind of doing a little Bob Ross. Everything's nice, and everything's mellow. Okay, everything's together. We can get hectic again. Let's get close. And looking at that face in the robot mode. It's hard to get... He's really deeply sculpted, so it's hard to get his red eyes in the shot, in the light. So that's a little unfortunate. But beyond that, it does look quite nice. It is very much, the Starscream you know and love. The classic G1 Trader. Just waiting to take over. So, still looking very good. You know what? Still nice. Now, on to more important topics at hand. Proportions are fairly good here. His torso, I think, is just a little bit too bulky. I don't know, there's just something slightly off about it, but it's not too bad. So, I'm not going to knock at any points for that. It's just maybe a little bit visually distracting, that's all. His silhouette, fairly clean. We do have the nose cone sticking out the back, but it is an improvement over the classics version because it's not attached to his head anymore. So his head has a full range of motion. I think that's it. I think that's what bothers me about the chest. Maybe his head's just slightly too small for him. There's just something that's it's a matter of micrometers, but still, it's just something offsetting me. A lot more red exposed here. Now, when this toy was first shown off, I was kind of worried about this section up top, because that is how they replicate the smaller looking cockpit from the animation model, rather than the full length one that on some of the toys goes all the way up to his neck, which doesn't look correct. I like that little bridge to kind of give it that correct little proportion. And it was red on some of them. I went, please don't be red on the final. Please don't be red on the final. It is gray here. So yes, he does have the correct look to his chest. That's a relief. And if we look him over, he's got completely new sculpting from the classics one. So there's really not a lot shared other than the engineering. In fact, there's nothing shared but some of the engineering. So I actually think they did a good job. It's a really nice Starscream. I do question 2 lines in 2 years starting with Starscream as the Voyager. I do understand that they have remolds and repaints that they want to get out. We kind of know that Thrust is on the way, which has me excited because I really like the design on Thrust. But I can still find Siege Starscream on some shelves. I can absolutely find Thundercracker. So it's a little bit weird going up to the toy shelves and going, oh, there's 2 Voyager Starscreams that look very similar to each other, even though I know they're vastly different toys. I don't know. I question it as a marketing decision, but that's not here or there. That's just me pontificating. So, looking it over, I'm still quite happy with this toy. If you want a little bit more play value, you have ports over here and here. I guess these would have been available in vehicle mode too. So, gee, man, you got like 9 ports to work with in the vehicle mode. That's kind of cool. Of course, aside from his hands, you also have the ones on his shoulders. If you want to replace the null rays, you have the ones over here. Plenty. You have them on the feet for some reason. Like, those aren't even available in vehicle mode. I'm not sure what's going on there, but you got plenty of ports if you actually want to decorate this guy up. What I don't see on him are the little blast effect pegs. I'm not sure I see any now that I look at him very closely. Maybe one there on his forearm, and that might be it. I think that's the only thing you get to actually attack. You can only shoot him in the arm, I guess. Beyond that, yeah, everything's looking nice. He is very, very cool looking from the details. Articulation-wise, like I said, the neck is completely free of the nose cone this time, so we have a full range of articulation in the neck. Shoulders are universal, swivel and hinge. Bicep rotation is in, quite tight on mine, but it goes all the way around. The elbow also has a little bit above 90 degree, so he has plenty there. Lots of sockets. The one thing they couldn't do, there's no wrist articulation because they have to hinge down for the new transformation, and they couldn't do anything for a waist, which is really unfortunate. And looking at him, I kind of see it, but I also kind of think maybe they could have. So he has no waist articulation, which is unfortunate. He does have universal hips and thighs. He does have that thigh rotation and swivel, and he does have the 90-degree knees as well as the ankle tilt. So he does feature a lot more articulation than the classic Seeker did. Major improvement in that regard. Also, if you're having trouble getting your poses, look at that. Wings bend and hinge right there. So you can have a swept back wing look, or you can just plain get them out of the way in case they are bothering your poses. But that in general is your classics Starscream upscaled into Earthrise Starscream. I do think it is a considerably great improvement over a 14-year-old toy that is very well remembered, but definitely aged very poorly for especially in the classics line, where I feel like a few managed to survive and be a little bit more up to date than others. I feel like it's a very needed upgrade. We finally have like a very nice F-15 Starscream again that can be repainted and remolded for another 14 years, but who knows? Like, we don't have a collector's club anymore to run every possible iteration of the mold anymore. So who knows what the fate of the Starscream is. I think it's a little bit silly to argue the borrowed transformation. I really do, because we've had so many Transformers. Look at Prowl. Like, when have you seen a Prowl toy transform any differently from past ones? It's always the same thing. So, like, give it a rest. Like, it's a good transformation. It's a fun toy. And it's probably the best, like, mainline Starscream we've gotten. Retail level Starscream, especially. So, just, if you like the classic Seeker, you're probably going to like the Voyager. It's got a lot of really good things going for it. Just don't get too hung up on where it came from.